Hello, gamers and gamettes. What is going on? My name is Tanuck127, and welcome back to another video. And guys, in today's video, I want to talk to you all more about Tower of Fantasy. But before we get into today's video, I do want to give a special shout out and a special thank you to Perfect World Games and Tower of Fantasy for hooking me up with early access on PlayStation 5. Now, just because this video is sponsored and I got a review key from them does not mean I'm not allowed to criticize the game or, say what I don't like about the game. As a matter of fact, guys, the developers and the community manager have actually made it clear that they are welcoming criticism. They do want to hear players' feedback. They even have opened up a whole section on their Discord looking for feedback, criticism, bugs, any complaints you guys have. I'll even be tagging the devs and stuff like that in this video. So make sure you make your voices heard here in the comments if there's something that's bothering you with the game. Make it heard on Discord, make it heard on social media, whatever. We're not going to be holding anything back into today's video. So I just want to make that disclaimer out there big and clear. So let's go ahead and talk about Tower of Fantasy. So this is going to be my first impressions. I've only been playing Tower of Fantasy on PS4 for PS5 roughly 7 to 10 hours maybe by the time you guys have watched this video. I'm roughly level 23 or 24 now. I have been fortunate enough to roll one SSR character. I got the Ice Greatsword character. I can't remember her name unfortunately, but you guys will see me using the weapon here in today's video, so I'm pretty sure you guys will be able to name her very easily, especially you Tower of Fantasy veterans out there. But so far, is Tower Fantasy, is it worth it? Should you purchase early access and stuff like that? Are the founders packs worth it and everything? In my opinion, I'm honestly going to say yes, and that's because of the type of game that Tower of Fantasy is. So let's go ahead and break that down first. What is Tower of Fantasy? Tower of Fantasy is a free-to-play, anime-based MMORPG slash gacha game. Now, gacha, for those who don't know, it is basically kind of like a lottery system where you can roll for, different characters, weapons, and stuff like that. When it comes to gacha games, depending on how the formula is done in them, some people may look at them as like a pay-to-win kind of thing, which I do understand where people are coming from. But my argument with that, especially when it comes to gacha games, is you can, yes, a lot of the characters you can roll for can be more powerful if you work on them. Now, if you roll and you get, like some 5 or 6 star all powerful characters and stuff like that, that's great. They can be strong, but you still have to put in the grind yourself to make that character strong. The game's just going to give you the character or the weapon, kind of like how things work in Warframe. You can buy a specific frame and you can buy a specific weapon, but if you don't grind the mods and make the build right, then the Warframe might as well just be a skin. Same thing with the weapon, and that's the same thing how things kind of work here in Tower of Fantasy. If you're not grinding the gear, putting the right stuff on, adding the right like augments and stuff like that to your weapons and everything, then it's really not going to do much or give you anything in the long run. So yeah, I can see how people see gacha and stuff like that as pay to win, but I'm guessing everybody's opinion is going to be different on. That's just my personal opinion and how things work with gacha. We can debate all that later on. That's not a big deal. But if you want a good comparison to what Tower of Fantasy is, I would have to say the best comparison out there, and you guys have probably seen a billion people make this comparison already, is in so many words, the easiest way to sum it up and describe it is MMO Genshin Impact. But in my opinion, honestly, and this is going to be my bit of bias because I am a Genshin Impact fan. I do love Genshin Impact. But to my opinion, it's honestly kind of better. I do enjoy Tower of Fantasy a lot more in a bunch of its aspects. Now, it's not going to be too fair to compare the two games because one's an MMO, one's a single player gacha based action RPG, but let me explain my logic to it. So when Genshin Impact was first announced, there were a lot of people confused on what type of game it was. MiHoYo didn't make that very clear, and there was a crowd out there that was hoping, that Genshin Impact was an anime MMO RPG. I was one of those people. There were a lot of people out there like that. Fast forward, the game releases, that's not the case. There are some light multiplayer elements, but they really don't utilize or take advantage of those elements in the game too much. So when you go back and look at it like that, yeah, basically, it's a single player game with some gacha and multiplayer elements to it. When you look at Tower of Fantasy, it's like somebody heard that MMO anime wish that a lot of us players had and went on and just, and acted on it. Now, does it borrow some elements from Genshin Impact? Sure, it has the stamina climbing, the stamina swimming, and stuff like that. Sort of a similar combat feel, but that's kind of, where the comparisons stop. If you want to, unless you want to add in the whole gotcha thing. But after that, they're two completely different games. They have their own style of endgame. They have their own style of content. They both use an anime-like aesthetic, but honestly, that's where pretty much where the comparisons end. Now a lot of people will say that's a decent amount of the game, but really that is it. In an MMO you're more so chasing a gear score to grind, raid, do end game content. And I mean, I guess you can argue and say, well, when you're playing Genshin, your objective kind of is the same to, to get your character as powerful as possible, get the best gear available, and, play the highest end content, to keep advancing your character and all that fun stuff. So I guess it really just comes down to the preference of, do you want to do it more in an MMO-like setting, or do you want to do it more in a single-player setting? Me personally, I'm an MMO guy. Obviously, I'm going to choose the more MMO-like game, which definitely, is Tower of Fantasy here, hands down. Now, the game, hands down, is gorgeous. Just so you guys know, if you're playing on PlayStation 5, there are two modes. You can play it at 120 FPS running at 1080p, or you can play it at 4K and 60 FPS. Both modes look great. The 120 FPS mode does have some pretty decent frame dips here and there, but the game is overall running pretty smooth. A lot of people seem to notice the frame dips, and I want to say that's because you're playing at 120 FPS, so the frame dips are a lot more apparent rather than, when the game's just simply running at 4K 60. I'm pretty sure the 4K 60 probably holds up a lot more stable than the 1080p 120 most of the time, or at least, from my gameplay experience and stuff like that. The game has a lot of options now. The menus, they're a little bit wonky, and I did put a guide out to help people and stuff like that with the menus, the game's UI and everything. Gameplay-wise, it's solid, but it's more so, just navigating the menus, things like the character creation and stuff like that. My fiance, personally, even though she had a little bit of a rough time with the character creation because she kept accidentally leaving the menu and stuff like that when she would get a good amount of progress done on her character. And I have to say that it's pretty frustrating. They don't really seem to have an option to turn off like the mouse features on the touchpad and everything. And a lot of, just simple little accidental button presses can mess you up and put you in a tough spot in some of these menus and stuff like that in the game. And especially, if you're someone who really likes to take time, make an in-depth character and stuff like that, make sure, you're just being really careful with what you push. Now, there are some minor bugs and stuff like that here in the game that I have spotted. Some weird, character models being off at certain points in the story and stuff like that. There are some pieces of dialogue missing in certain cutscenes. When you actually play the game and boot it up for the first time, you'll actually be under the impression that it's just English subbed with Japanese voice acting. You can actually turn the English voice acting on right away and just reboot your game, and the English voice acting pretty much takes place like in the first chapter, almost immediately, sometime during the tutorial. So you guys can go in the options and change that. But overall, guys, Tower of Fantasy so far, I think it's a lot of fun. Some personal complaints I've personally had with it is I'm enjoying the story. I'm loving running through the content and everything so far. I just haven't seen, too much of the MMO stuff yet. Now, that could be just me not exploring enough and not getting far enough into the game, but, I haven't done a multiplayer dungeon yet. I haven't ran into a world boss yet, and the game has so many channels on it that sometimes it almost feels single player. It's like, I'm pretty sure that they were worried about server congestion and everything, so that's why they made so many channels for every single area in the game. But man, there are so many channels, and the game will purposely place you so far down the list that sometimes, you just feel like you're in the world by yourself, and you're like, hey man, this is an MMO. Where is everybody? So I do think, that developers should consider condensing them down just a little bit so, we can get more of that multiplayer experience. I do know that, they're concerned about server congestion and things like that, but I personally feel like they went a little bit overboard with this version, and it's actually holding up a lot better than they expected to. But other than that, guys, I'm having a great time with Tower of Fantasy on PlayStation 5. I would definitely say check out one of the Founders Packs and grab them, especially if you're a gacha collecting kind of person. I would definitely say a Founders Pack and Early Access is for you. But if not, if you're more so just playing as another MMO RPG to grind for, or if you just want to play it as something to hold you off till Wayfinder, the game goes free to play on August 8th, and you can always wait till then. But if you definitely want to, get into some of those gacha goodies, get some pools, grab some SSR characters and stuff like that, I would definitely consider purchasing one of the 3 Founders packs, getting yourself some early access so you can grind and, get yourself some good old Nucleus and all that fun jazz. But anyway, guys, y'all enjoyed today's video, smash that like button. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace out. Have a good one.